Hello, class, and welcome to our last lecture series on international finance. I'm your instructor, Dr. Jamal. Okay, so our final exam is going to be on 27th of December during the class, the same time. All right, and our paper pattern is going to be the same like in our midterm. So I would be including true, false, MCQs, and I call this part one. Right? So in part one, I would be giving you true, false, and MCQs, and also I would be uploading this answer sheet. So that would be time bound or time restricted. So I hope you understand why I do this, because I want to minimize to the minimist the opportunity for cheating as well. Okay, so we need to establish some equity and justice in the class. Okay, for part two, I call part two as the case study, the short questions, right? For this, I would be giving you ample time, right? But for part one, true, false, and MCQs, you are allowed to answer your answers or even write your keyboard, write using keyboard on the Word file, all right? Or you can just send me like, the pictures of your midterm, answer sheet as well, all right? If you have time issue, but please respect the time limit, because I won't be accepting your part one if you are late, all right? Any question regarding our final exam?
No.
Okay. Tiffany, PD, Rujier, Sufyan, Oliver?
No question.
No question.
No
Okay. Okay. Okay, let's talk about our today's agenda. So in our earlier lectures, we finished the chapter 7 and 8, in which we talk about the arbitrage, covered interest arbitrage, right? So just a note that we talked about the three forms of arbitrage: locational arbitrage, triangular arbitrage, and covered interest arbitrage. And let's talk about its comparison. So remember, the threat of locational arbitrage ensures that quoted exchange rates are similar across the banks. So what do we mean by the threat? So that the others cannot make profit. If I find out that there is locational arbitrage where I can find cheaper currency from the same banks or different banks across different locations, I can buy and sell it to this bank. So when we do this kind of stuff, everybody start knowing that, because everybody is intelligent and educated, and the business is very competitive. So when one of the participant find out this kind of arbitrage, everybody jumps into that one. Ultimately, banks will be notified, and banks start using the same exchange rate prices all over its locations. All right. The threat of triangular arbitrage ensures that cross exchange rates are properly set. All right, maybe there is an opportunity to earn profit. So by buying and selling and buying and selling, there are many people in the markets, because forex markets are more liquid, especially for the generally accepted currencies. So what happens if the cross exchange rates are mispriced? So there is an opportunity to make risk less profit or arbitrage. So if there is an arbitrage in triangular arbitrage market, then what happens? It automatically corrects itself, because many people jumps into that to exploit the market to earn riskless profit. And the third one is the threat of covered interest arbitrage ensure that forward exchange rates are properly set or properly priced so that there is no more discrepancy in the market that trigger the arbitrage. All right. So because arbitrage means risk less profit. So the theory says that more risk, more profit. So here risk is zero and we are having profit. So these opportunities are very temporary and they correct itself. Why? Because everybody start exploiting it. So thus the arbitrage tend to allow for more orderly foreign exchange markets. So wherever there is discrepancy, the arbitrage corrects itself. So this is like an invisible tool. All right. So a quick glance, the locational arbitrage, it capitalizes on differences in sorry about that, exchange rate across locations. Triangular arbitrage, it capitalizes means that you are earning profit. So differences across the cross exchange rates. And the last one is cover interest arbitrage, which means it capitalizes based on forward rate and interest rate differentials or interest rate differences between two countries. Sorry about that. So our today's agenda is that we will be covering a small portion of this chapter, forecasting exchange rate. Sorry. So up till now, what we have discussed during this course, we talked about why we have to include the international, finance here because we are dealing with currencies. Why there is a need, how exchange rate plays an important role in our. Sorry about that. Let me drink the water. Okay, so we're talking about up to now what we have discussed. We have discussed the first of all the environment of international finance, and then we talk about the importance of international finance, and then we talk about the importance of exchange rate in international finance, and then we talked about the effects of exchange rate and what happened if foreign direct investment is here, what happened if there is interest rate and inflation, so how money moves from here and there. And then we talk about the earning perspective, what happened if inflation in that country occurred, what happened to our country, would this export the inflation or not, this kind of stuff, right? And then we talk about, okay, if I'm doing business in international environment, then how I can manage my risk. We talked about different contracts, option contracts, we talked about forward and future, right? So, and now we are at the end of our course objective, and that one is forecasting exchange rate. So forecasting how rates are going to move. All right. So this particular part is a part of exchange rate risk management. So we have identified the risk and now we are managing the risk. All right. So information on existing and anticipated economic conditions of various countries and historical exchange rate movements. We use forecasting, and forecasting can be used how exposure and how risk will affect cash flows, whether to hedge or not. All right. So basically forecasting is coming from the economic condition and historical movement of exchange rate risk. So let's just formally dive into the world of exchange rate, forecasting exchange rate. So first of all, the introduction is that the cost of an MNC's operations and revenues received from operations are affected by exchange rate movements. We know that because head office is another country, subsidiaries are in other countries, operations are in different countries. So we need to, disperse the amount for operations and receive the profit in different currencies. So exchange rate management is still there. So MNC's forecast of exchange rate movements, which can affect the feasibility of its planned projects and might influence its managerial decisions. All right? Because the essence of the forecasting is plan. So smart managers of big companies, they plan for their future. What will happen in 6 months? What will happen in 1 year or 2 year and 5 years? So they align their business direction towards their missions and objectives. All right. So for achieving those mission and goals and objectives, they plan. So if they plan, they forecast their cash flows. And since in international finance or in international business like MNCs, their inflows are greatly affected by exchange rate movements. So they forecast their cash flows as well. What will happen if we receive 30% less cash flows? How we will be investing those? What if we increase more, 10% more, cash flows, and how we are going to, invest those? All right. What if we have a shortage of cash? From where we can fulfill that? So an MNC's revision of exchange rate forecast can change the relative benefits of alternatives, proposed operations, and may cause MNCs to revise its business strategies. If you want to be a competitor, but what happened? The exchange